I feel quite comfortable with expressing my identity with my culture, not just keeping it within our home and taking it everywhere with me.
So being Korean for me is providing new perspectives, gave me new values to live by.
We bring a different, I suppose, lens on how we see things. That's what I suppose I do in my community work on government advisory group representing the community.
And that's a part of my very personal identity, but at least I'm nurturing it. I'm not just shutting it off, like I'm comfortable with who I am.
I was doing just what I needed to feel like I was going to fit in, to kind of just survive and get through. I think that's part of the journey of growing.
What it means for me to be a New Zealander is someone who is blessed enough to live in this beautiful country and to live with the people and the systems that are in this country. Kia ora! My name is Romy and I'm a Youth Advisory and Peer Workforce Development Lead at Whāroto. I am 24 years old and I am a proud Korean New Zealander.
Hi, my name's Richard Leung. I'm a third generation Chinese New Zealander. I'm a community leader in the Chinese community in Auckland. Kia ora.
Kia ora and assalamu alaikum. Ko Tayyiba Khan Tokonua. So my name is Tayyiba. I'm originally Pakistani. I was born in Pakistan but raised in Japan and New Zealand. And currently I'm the Director of Advocacy at the Office of the Health and Disability Commissioner.
Kia ora, I'm Angela Hahn. I'm a Youth Consumer Advisor at Health New Zealand in the county's Manukau region. I'm a second generation Cambodian. I was born in New Zealand and my parents migrated to New Zealand as refugees.
Hi, my name is Jong Sang Chan. I work as a PA for Asian Family Services. I was born and raised in New Zealand.
Kia ora, my name is Lovely. I am a student at the University of Auckland. I'm currently in my last year of my PhD in population health. I'm Filipino. I was born in Angeles in the Philippines and we moved here to New Zealand when I was 2.
It would be primary school. The type of food we would bring in, and the shared lunch especially, when I found out other kids are quite different. I would often eat rice or shared food, but at school it was often sandwiches, biscuit, which was very different to what I had. What I did pick out from their facial expressions, they didn't quite like the smell of what I brought. I remember going to my mom and saying, there must be something wrong with my food. Everyone had just bread and stuff in the middle. Can you make that? From that point onwards for 6 years, I've had sandwiches every lunch.
Think back to those words now and go, wow, I can't believe it's called a curry muncher. People told me the food I ate looked like shit. Those things were really quite aggressive. In a school where actually I was being othered for being Pakistani, or I was a small girl, so being bullied, my looks were up for people's commentary. It was a tough time. It was really, really hard and you felt really alone.
I think my biggest struggle was navigating what it meant to be Kiwi and what it meant to be Filipino. I think often I would go into spaces feeling like too Asian and not Kiwi enough, but then I would go into like Filipino spaces. I felt like I wasn't like Filipino enough, so I think it was just like I just feel like I didn't fit anywhere, and that was really hard. And I love my parents. When I moved out of home to start uni, and as I got older and was making my own decision, we had quite a lot of arguments about what they thought was best for me and what I thought was best for me. I just felt like I was not just disappointing them, but also not making their sacrifice to move here like worth it, because I was like wasting it away. I think that's really challenging, kind of navigating how do you honour your parents' sacrifices but also do the things that you're passionate about.
In terms of primary school, we used to get called Ching Chong Chinaman and other such names. You sort of got to learn not to even take notice of it. It sort of grew another thick skin to ignore it. Favourite saying was, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. I suppose the biggest assumption for, most of the Asian community is, oh, where are you from? You say, oh, I'm from Auckland. No, where are you really from? And the funny thing is, it's probably some of those people that ask that question, my family's probably been here longer than they have.
I think when I was younger, I did try my best to fit in because obviously it's easier to relate to people and make friends. I felt like I had to speak like them or dress like them. Otherwise, I would be classified as a non-cool Asian, a nerd or someone who's passive or quiet, which is all completely fine, but I was so scared of being stereotyped as a typical Asian. At a younger age, it's definitely challenging because you find yourself in a space where you're like, oh, I'm different. That means something's wrong, or oh, I shouldn't have shared that. Like now people are going to think differently of me.
One of the moments that really stood out to me was when I went to the Philippines on my own for the first time without my family. The preacher, when he kind of introduced us, he said, oh, like, this is lovely, she's a Filipino and she's also like a Kiwi. And I was like, yeah, actually I am. And I'd never really thought about myself like that. And I think that was probably one of the bigger turning points for me in that moment. I was like, oh yeah, like here is a group of people who are celebrating me for being both Kiwi and Filipino without judging me for my Tagalog being super average or not knowing every single custom, and that was really great. And I think I sort of reflected on that when I came back a few months later, started my PhD.
So when we moved here, what was really important to my parents was that we thrived in the system here. My dad, I can still remember, I want you to learn what you need to survive here, not somewhere else. But that also meant that I was just very limited in understanding my cultural identity fully till 9/11 happened, which was possibly the most pinnacle turning point for me in my life. That's when I realized I am Muslim. I helped establish my high school's first Muslim group and asked for a prayer room. During lunch times, I would be able to go and pray there, but I would also be able to engage with other young women who were also Muslim, just kind of get to know what our challenges were as Muslim. I'm trying to really reframe that for myself because I want to embrace my racial identity and my ethnic identity.
My parents would have like these expectations of me because they're Cambodian and they have a specific way of seeing things or some beliefs. As I started developing my own worldview and beliefs and values in a New Zealand environment, sometimes they clash. It was a bit of back and forth, like my mum trying to reinforce our Cambodian culture and then me kind of pushing back and being like, no, this is what I want to do, this is what I believe in. Me and my parents have met like quite a good middle ground where I respect and acknowledge our culture as Cambodians, and also they've been open to like how I've been raised in a Kiwi society and what my beliefs and worldviews are. That's good that we can kind of be flexible with each other. And also, even though they're first generation, they've been here for a really long time as well, so they're adapting to the culture as well.
To be honest, I think I've had no choice but to come to a place of acceptance, compromise, and closure for myself. And the reason I say I have no choice is I can't let the challenges that I face, the not so straightforwardness of being a Korean New Zealander, of having two generations, I can't let that hold me back. In order to work towards what I want for myself for the future, I've become extremely well practiced in finding happy mediums.
For obvious reasons, the Korean culture and the Kiwi culture is very different. As I was growing up, that they would always conflict with each other. I didn't quite like having to face those conflicts. I guess I've matured in a way where I can easily transition from those two environments. I definitely picked up the skill where I could have my Korean hat on, go to the cafe, switch automatically to a Kiwi hat.
What it means for me to be a New Zealander is really embracing the bicultural nature of New Zealand and that being something that's part of my identity. I also like having two cultures because for me, I feel like that gives me double the options to choose all of the great things about these cultures. I think it's a gift and not a lot of people are privileged enough to be in that position. Having two cultures, being an ethnic minority in New Zealand, has given me the gift of having two perspectives. It's also, I think it's made me a more empathetic person. I take time and I put an effort to understand and to really listen to what people's experiences are. I think this has been helpful for me, not just from a cultural perspective, but in the way that I walk through the world. Knowing my own experience and the unique background, the experiences that I've had, it helps me meet other people where they're at easier. I have a lot more empathy when I hear about the different experiences that people have in life. With being from a different ethnicity and living in a Western-dominated society, we come to learn that the Western way is the norm. It's the way that things should be done. It's the way that we should conform, and there's a lot of expectation put on that. What is it about me and what I do and how I live my life that I give myself that label? And I don't actually have any good answer for that. It's just a judgment that I've had for myself, I guess. I'd say you do you. which is a lot more simpler said than done. First and foremost, I think it's important to honour our own values.
And I would just say, you know, you are who you are. Don't even worry about fitting in or what people are going to think of you, because the right people, whether they're Asian or a different culture, they will gravitate towards you if you're just being yourself.
My friends were the biggest catalyst to helping me overcome these problems. If I couldn't find solutions, I could always just look at my peers to find how they've overcome similar situations to mine. I was able to meet so many Koreans of different backgrounds, and that's when I realized I'm not alone. Like, I'm not the only Korean that can only speak English. You know, I had trouble trying to be communicating in Korean. It was a great space for me to discover more about my culture in a way that interested me.
High school, and then had a dean who was really helpful and supportive and redirected me to be able to get the help that I need to manage the bullying I was going through. Really saved my life. It was good to know that there was someone I could go to and talk to and get help from, but at least I had someone to tell me how to do that, and that changed my life. The best thing for me to do was to connect with people, you know, even if it was virtually, making the effort to actually just spend time with people.
I think your pain and your suffering is so valid, even if it doesn't look like what other people's pain looks like. Like, your suffering doesn't minimize somebody else's suffering, and that it's okay to feel that way, and it's okay to feel confused. And I really hope that there are safe spaces for you to feel a sense of belonging and a sense of hope and a place to unpack some of the stuff that you've gone through. Hopefully this project, what it means for 1.5 and second generation like Asian young people here in Aotearoa, is that we can have those conversations, and that there's a safe group of people who are here who do want to talk with you and who want to sit with you and be your found family if you don't have it. But yeah, I think you belong here in New Zealand, and you're worthy of having those conversations and having your stories validated, and for people to journey alongside you during those experiences.
I would say reach out to the generation before you, or even people in your generation who are a bit more in touch with their culture. When you hear like a story or like an experience, then you have that personal connection to it, and you start taking it on for yourself and applying it to the context of your life. Yeah, I would say just speak to people that can share that knowledge with you. So I think sharing that knowledge and sharing those cultural differences give everyone a better world perspective rather than just their own culture. I just hope that the younger generation can feel accepted and they can just be themselves without having to shadow any aspects of themselves and emphasize other ones that are more accepted. And I hope that people can actually learn more about each other's cultures as well, because there's more similarities than differences at the end of the day, I think. So I have 2 nephews and third generation Cambodians. So I want them to feel confident in their identity and have that connection to their culture as well. I like to see build each other up so that we can be our true selves.
My advice would be to connect. That might mean family and friends. That might mean people who can teach you more about the history of your culture. It might mean connecting with the food that's from your culture. You know, the reason I say that is because we can't do this on our own. For me, I find connection to be a very helpful thing. And as I said, you know, that's relationships, that's connection with myself, connection with my environment, with my work, with my study. It's important that we have the people around us who love us and care for us and support us to not necessarily solve any issues, but to be able to walk alongside this journey with us.
New Zealand was formed on basis of bicultural, Maori and British culture or English culture. Now with so many more ethnic communities migrating to New Zealand, you know, there's that whole question of New Zealand based on a bicultural proposed foundation, but being a multicultural country with all the different ethnicities. Now there's over 200 ethnicities in New Zealand. So being a Kiwi is not just being European or Maori anymore. That definition of being a Kiwi is so many layers to it now. And also adding to that mix is those intermarriages of communities and nationalities and ethnicities. People identify now with a multiple number of ethnicities. We do need more representation of not just Chinese community but also Asian community within mainstream New Zealand. Hopefully I give some sort of, I suppose, inspiration for people to, our younger generation, to put their hand up, be volunteers in our community, and that might lead to them becoming a public servant or entering politics, local or national politics. What I want is basically to build on what our past generations have done for us and hopefully leave something for the future generations.
Yes, it does. I think people need someone else to hold their hand and lift them up. And once you have gotten there, it is your responsibility to do that for other people. And I hope that we create a world where children can feel like it's okay to be who they are and where they're from, dress the way that they do, eat the food that, is their cultural food. And actually being silent on these issues is being complicit. So speak up and speak out and support people when you can see that something is not right. That's what I'd hope happens for future generations.
Asian Family Services recently conducted a study. That study shows that Asians were likely to face stigma when it came to reaching for help. It was quite interesting for me to see that so many of the Asian communities actually face problems in their mental health or in just their daily lives, and they all needed help. But the fact that we weren't aware of that was because of that social stigma. They feel the need to hide their problems and only show the best sides of them to the public. So now that AFS is aware that there is a social stigma out there, not through just counseling, but through public health work, we're looking to break those barriers so that more people could reach out to communities that they need.
What I want to do here in the space is to help New Zealand to become a more multicultural society, I guess. And when I say that, I mean acknowledging biculturalism at the heart of the makeup of our country. But further to that, it's important that people like me who have these dual identities can feel at home and comfortable as well. My ideal community would look like a place where young people like me can grow up. They can reach their full potential. They don't have to face discrimination, either from home or outside, and they can feel proud to have the identity that they have. That is what I would really love to see. And I think the best thing that I can do probably is around working on myself and working on bringing closure to myself, but continue to work on myself and support myself so that I can be proud of who I am.
It's okay to feel that way, and it's okay to feel confused.
It is okay to not be okay.
You are who you are, you're just being yourself.
I'd say you do you.
And you want others to embrace you and accept you as you are.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but nature will never hurt me.